Hello, I'm Sherry Huss, and I'm part of the Inside Live team. Today, we're going to be interviewing Marco Pardi, who is President and Managing Director of Informa Tech. And my colleague, Ida Marcobovi, is also joining me here today.
Hi there.
Hey, Marco. Hey, Sherry. It's awesome to be here. Marco, maybe we can kick it off with you telling us a little bit about what you do at Informa. How long have you been there, and how'd you get there?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, so I'm with the Informa Tech division of Informa. So we are focused here on the technology market and the information products that serve that market, primarily events, increasingly virtual events, but events, digital media and marketing services, and research and intelligence that is branded under the Omdia brand. And I've been with Informa now for I think 3 years. I came to Informa by way of acquisition of UBM back 2017, I think now 2018, and I was with UBM for a decade before that. So I've been in and around the technology market and events, media, and intelligence, well, for longer than I care to count at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Marco, you and I worked together back, I think in, was it 2002-ish? Although I got started in the event world in about 96, and I think that was about the same time that maybe you had started a little earlier, back at CMP. But, you know, in the 30 years that you've been around and I've been around, like, what do you make of what's going on now? And, you know, have you ever seen anything like this?
Has it been 30 years? Geez. Yeah. So those were the fun days, right? And I think we were both, again, it was in technology back in the late 90s where there was nothing but up to go until, of course, the bubble burst. And so the tech bubble, I think, gave us all fits and starts in the industry. And I mean, I can remember many brand names around the event world that existed back then that are no longer here. And so one thing we have learned is that all the industries go through cycles, and they're including massive economic cycles, which clearly we're faced with at the moment. And so I think, yeah, we've experienced these challenging times over the years, but I don't think that, certainly not the events industry, has not been impacted in the way that COVID has impacted it, for obvious reasons. I mean, it's very difficult to host any kind of physical event when you can only be with 12 or 15 other people. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that's any news flash for anybody. But what the past has taught us, I think, is what you make of it, how you maneuver at a time when your business model is changing or your underlying industry has been impacted. We will also work together, Sherry, I think, coming out of that period of the technology market and anything that having to do with the internet being sort of a bad word or a scary area, and launching with O'Reilly that Web 2.0 event that we did as a joint venture between CMP and O'Reilly, and interestingly, I'm seeing flashes of that happen again, where cooperation and collaboration is the way we come out of this horrendous situation that we're in. And frankly, that's something that's comforting. And certainly, one of the only ways out, if we're all in a dark room and we all have one match, we put them together, maybe we can see where the door is and find our way out. And Web 2.0, if you remember, was ended up being, it was a tough couple of years. Nobody wanted to talk to us. They thought we were crazy, but it was, it ended up being sort of a massive growth period that we entered into together, which just really is the secret of it all.
That's true. Oops. Oh, Itamar, we can't hear you.
I was just saying, in response to that, Marco, it's interesting how when crisis gets bad enough and there really isn't a nuanced sort of platform for competition right now. Like everyone is up against the same thing. And it kind of allows you to experience your industry minus 30% of the competitive edge that normally exists between people. And suddenly you really feel community pretty strongly at this moment. And I'm super curious because I think a lot of people in the industry are feeling that sense of support and that sense of connection, and that's been a real lifeline during this time. How do you think that lasts going forward once stuff slowly starts churning and moving again? Do we stay with that generous kind of attitude, or does everything just go back to the dog eat dog that we were in before? Not to say the industry was only dog eat dog, but there was certainly this is a bunch of competitive people.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. How long is this sharing going to last? I don't know. I actually am pretty hopeful that it will be a little bit more embedded in the way that we operate moving forward. I do think that, because you can't undo relationships. You can't unmake the bonds you create during a crisis. And you know, we've at the, you know, community that I interact with and have been over the last few months as we've been sharing information and sharing experiences and trying to learn about how, you know, how to make the most of the situation. There's been really good relationships established, and I think it's brought this industry together like we've never had to come together before. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be competition in the future. Of course, there will be. Where you're operating in similar markets, you know, certainly that will occur. But where you're not, and where you have the common foundation of the nature of business that you're operating around, the event industry, there, I think it will continue. I don't think, it's also interesting learning from what's going on in the U.S. in general in terms of, you know, dog eat dog world. You know, what makes the world go round? Is it getting ahead of one another, or is it you know, that great word we like to refer to called love? Maybe a little strong for this conversation, but I will say that leaning on each other is you know, perhaps something that I think a lot of people appreciate. And I think we're going to see that continue, and certainly through next year. I don't see that changing.
Yeah.
I also think weakness in some way was really pushed out of business, and human frailty or vulnerability was really pushed out of business. And I think now, where you're looking at the companies that are able to really spearhead inclusion and efforts that are sort of really looking at the whole world from a moral perspective, not just the bottom line world from its own moral perspective.
Yeah,
I think those companies are actually communicating much better, both with their customers and with their staff and employees. And so it's been interesting, how do we incorporate into a business context this sort of softer stuff that we usually kept out, but now we're realizing people are saying, unless you can get through to me on that level, I don't think I can do business with you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And you know, couple of points there. I mean, you know, first of all, the events industry is a people-based industry. So naturally, that's going to be important to the kind of folks that are attracted to this industry. But secondly, just look at how we started this conversation with the number of years Sherry and I have known each other, and how we keep coming back and intersecting together. That's going to happen in this industry as well. And, you know, it's going to happen probably more so than not in the next 12 to 18 months, as there will likely be, you know, less larger events out there, less variety, less choice. I think you're going to see people coming back and working with one another in different ways, increasingly as we move forward.
I agree. And I think community, I mean, I think one thing that, from what I understand of your portfolio, you actually are lucky to have a really strong community basis for GDC and for Black Hat as well. Like maybe more so than even some other industry events. You have folks that really care about pushing things forward. So
Yep.
That's probably an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. So how do you keep that community together, and how do you, keep growing it and building it?
Yeah, no, that's very true, and I'm not embarrassed to say that having a little bit of luck is a good thing at the moment. But it's true, we are lucky to have the strong community that our
Yeah.
brands have built over the years, and it has. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it means the stakes are higher. You hear from your customers and your clients often and early, and sometimes that manifests itself in we'll just say suggestions for improvement. But
Yeah.
it does mean loyalty, and it does mean that they recognize that that an event isn't just a financial exercise. It's about bringing people together to inform and move forward in an industry. And again, while the events industry is on that sort of painful early edge of the impact of COVID, along with travel and retail and hospitality, every industry is impacted. So naturally, helping an industry move forward is something that we can uniquely do. And when you have a strong brand and you have a strong community, I think you'll again be lucky enough to come out maybe a little bit earlier than the rest, because there's a real desire to get back together, and there's a confidence in what we've done in the past that will help our customers get over some of the barriers that might exist to coming back to a physical environment.
I find what you're saying to be such a lesson in a way for this time. Like, I find it inspiring that if you take someone who's only 5 years into the industry and they're watching someone who's really a veteran in the industry saying, I've done it one way for 30 years, that's changing completely. But my response to that is take every second and work on my relationships. Mm-hmm. Just work on those relationships, deepen those relationships. This is like almost a golden opportunity to deepen those relationships with the knowledge that that's where the future is going to come from. It's the conversations you're having today.
Right.
And that's a piece of advice that I think a lot of people who are like, oh, what's going on with events? I've been doing it for 3 years. I got to find something else. Whatever the younger person in the industry might be thinking right now, it's fascinating to me that the way to do it is double down, lean in, and I think that's just a really good mentor piece, I think, for a lot of people who haven't been in there for as long as you have. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. And I think it's also having to sort of break the shackles of it has to exist in this format, and thinking more about, again, the community or the customer that you're serving, and how can you continue to stay in contact with that community in different ways when we can't gather in a physical environment. And of course, that's easier said than done, right? We're all having to figure out what the best way is to engage with our customers and our community. When I mean, we have good data, we have good customer data. We know what content they want. We know how to bring them together. But then, actually figuring out how to do that in a meaningful way has been the challenge over these last few months. And we're all taking different cracks at the virtual experience and how to deliver information digitally in a meaningful way. And I'm, listen, I'll be the first to admit we don't have all the answers, but in those relationships we have with others, and in comparing and contrasting what's working and what's not working, that's where we're feeling success, and at least feeling momentum and progress.
It's almost like the early days of television again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuring out the format. What is a show? How long should it be? What's the advertising model? How do you do it? What's the upfront? How do you market? Like, all these things have to be reinvented in this particular moment. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marco, you mentioned your team as being kind of one of the key things that's been a real positive during this period as well. And, what have you learned, or what has, what's the team taught you, or what's it like to even manage a team through this period?
Yeah, I mean, listen, without an amazing group of people around you, you're not going to get very far. And so it's the actual the willingness of our folks to embrace the situation and reskill, go out and find information about how to do something that we have actually not really been trained to do has been amazing. I mean, there is, we don't have a training manual on running a virtual event.
Right.
Now, our group does have a very, very strong business around digital media and marketing services with some, incredible online brands like Dark Reading and Information Week and IT Pro and No Jitter. And we do have products that are well, we called virtual events, but they were really not the same kind of virtual events that would align with the kind of large scale events that we're used to running. They were sort of shorter, a handful of sponsors and a couple of basically strung together webinars to just simplify it. And what we realized is we have the need to deliver 10 tracks of training, and how do you create a meaningful networking package, and nobody really knew how to do that. And in fact, the tools out there were not really well developed around that, and still aren't. I think we're still working with our vendors to fine tune, to create offerings that we can use to help our customers interact better. But the team has done an amazing job in going out and I mean, listening to demo after demo after demo, and then experimenting with one model after another. The sales organization trying to figure out what the financial model is, what's the right a way to have our sponsors engage, and then how to deliver content, which has been I think one of the biggest challenges for us, how to deliver content in the right format and one that's valuable to our community.
Yeah. And I think when we go back to live, or when we get back to live, there's still going to be a lot of great learnings here. And there's some things that we can actually do better online that will make, once we come back, interactions and engagements are going to be even more meaningful. So there are several, I think, silver linings here. It's just painful right now getting there.
Well, it's you're absolutely right, and it's painful. I think the obvious the obvious pain point is the size of the opportunity isn't quite as large as it is when you can host a very large number of people, right? So there's that. But I agree with you, and one of the key learnings and one of the key benefits is understanding how to use data better, how to reorient the way you think about decision making in using that data, how to deliver better value to our customers through better information. And that's something that the team is learning to do rapidly. And so we're getting feedback on these virtual gatherings very quickly. We're able to standardize across all of them. We're actually it's changed the way we market our products as well, because you can do a little bit more testing and learning, and you don't have the natural time barriers to move that you do when you're having to marshal a lot of people into a physical environment. So that's we've learned that you can ramp things up also quickly and change them along the way.
My daughter serves on the community board of our town, of our neighborhood in Manhattan, and she just did a Zoom call with 20 kids from the New York Public Schools, talking about what it's been like to be in remote learning, and sort of did that for the community board so that different politicians could hear and interview them, and sort of ask these kids, and she got representative kids of different ages to actually come on the Zoom as a panel. Super interesting, like very cool. But what was fascinating is that a lot of the kids said, I'll tell you, if it's between a 1.5 hour commute each way to my high school every morning and getting up at 5:30 in the morning, or doing school on Zoom, this Zoom thing's really working out for me. Like, it's actually really working. And like, yeah, I miss my friends, but like, it's saving me like 3 hours a day to do what I want to do. I'm getting more sleep, I'm getting more exercise. I'm like, so it's funny that there's this kind of expectation that it's 100% bad, but in a weird way, there are also aspects that some kids in some situations are finding that the cost of actually going to school and integrating costs them so much time. As you say, the commute's no longer there, the moving of 10,000 people from room 1 to room 2, like that's a lot of energy and a lot of sort of mechanics on the lubrication of delivering the content. And I think figuring out where the value is most high in that equation is going to be one of the things that doing this next sort of iteration of our industry will end up revealing.
Yes, and I think you point out, it's really interesting. You point out though, I think also the difference between how virtual is landing on certain people versus others, right? So there's a lot of press, and I know this because I'm on a local school board here. It's K through 8 though, so a little bit different, situation. For some kids, as you point out, virtual learning has been amazing. Like, engaging with the time saving, whether it's I don't have to actually take a shower before class, or it's that I don't have to commute an hour and a half, or whatever it is, there's great benefits, and they're engaging and learning in a way that they haven't done before. For others though, it's not working so well. And
100%.
right, and also and I think I will speak to this, not that it's a education thing, but and actually the virtual program is great. I mean, I don't know what it would have taken for the three of us to get together in a studio to do this, but it wasn't very hard to organize virtually. Right. Is fantastic and efficient, but I miss the variety of moving from class to class, or meeting to meeting, or person to person. And again, I'm not trying to say that virtual isn't here to stay for some time, and I think it is. And I think it is going to change the way fundamentally we offer our content to our audiences and our community, and interact with each other in a business way. But I do think that some people love it, some people don't. And guess what? That existed last year.
Forever.
Right? Forever.
Right.
And the nice thing about virtual is we are, and this has been one learning that has been really interesting for us. I think on our most recent virtual event, something in the neighborhood of better than 70% of our audience were new to that event, meaning
Wow.
they've never come to a physical event. They were, aware of the brand in some way or another, but either they didn't want to travel, or the cost was prohibitive, or in fact, they're enjoy the virtual learning experience better, or it's easier for them to do it from home. But we've added thousands and thousands of new customers to our database as a result of these virtual events. And I think,
and that's fascinating, what that lead generation, then how do you follow up with all of those people, push them further down the funnel, and
Yep.
get them deeper into the live? So you've got this aura in the center of it all that is the actual live gathering, but you can also monetize the layers and build community with the layers around it, which I think is so cool.
That is exactly right. And I guess my point is this whole experience, and the forcing of the shift in our business model, and the forcing of the shift in how we deliver information to our communities and bring them together, I do believe will fundamentally change the way we think about producing the event product. And hybrid events are something that a lot of us in the industry are talking about, running both a live and a virtual version of the event. Now, unless somebody's hiding out there in the corner of the world that has been able to run a physical event, we don't actually know how a hybrid event will work, because we haven't run the physical version yet. And so talk about a whole new, have to figure out the new model of television. Having to figure out the new model of event right now we're just figuring out how to pivot to digital. What we haven't figured out how to do is do both at the same time. Yep. That will be an interesting I think, come into play next year, an interesting model in 2021. As we get back to physical, and I do believe we will get back to physical, that how you actually cast the net wider and use virtual to reach out to more customers than before will be really interesting. Really interesting
And
model.
think in a way about a sporting event, right? A football game gets played on the field, and just think of all the media that is getting created around that live event in every little nugget. Break away this, 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there, little report here, interview there, post-show, pre-show, inter-show. Like the whole thing gets structured. It is a hybrid event in a way, you know, where something is happening live, but it's all built, the whole value system is built out of that into a giant sort of value thing, rather than sort of saying, oh, we're streaming it, or we're going to put this online and have it be live. It's like, no, it's one whole new thing that we're building. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I just saw an interview yesterday with Julia Hartz, who's the co-founder and CEO of Eventbrite on Bloomberg. She was talking that Eventbrite this year did, I think there were 1 million virtual events. That's a new category for them. Like they really hadn't been too many Eventbrite virtual events in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But of all the events that they're doing right now, half of them to date now are starting to be in person. Small, like hyper local, 50 people or less. But it's the first positive sign that I've seen in a long time where things are starting to kind of come back. And again, it's probably going to start at that local or hyper local area, or specific smaller groups that are targeted in categories. So, but anyway, there is movement, which again, I hadn't heard that. So that's good news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have thankfully a pretty sizable business in China in our portfolio, in Informa's portfolio. Right. And we have now started to come back and run events. There's another event in an outdoor events or something that Informa is now running. We have a sort of the boat oriented show that's based in a harbor, and that is coming back online in a physical way. So I mean, you know, it's these things, you know, it's not a you know, COVID is certainly affecting the way we operate and the way we interact, but it's not crushing the industry. It's just again, because it's based on human interaction. It's based on connecting, and you know, we know that there's no better way to do that than physically,
face to face. Yeah, no, we agree. We completely agree. So what are you planning then, as much as you know right now, for 2021, 2022? I don't know if you've gotten to that point yet, or if there's anything you can share. Obviously communities are coming together online, but
no, of course we are already planning for 2021. It's that time of year for us, in terms of how we are projecting out our business and our financial prospects. And I mean, I think we have, you know, we are not assuming that we are going to come back to events on January 1st at this point. So the general thinking is in our group that physical will return in 2021, that it'll be more likely to happen at scale in the second half of the year. And, you know, depends on the size of the event and the industry that you're serving. But that's our general assumption, and that they'll come back at a likely lower level than 2019, when we were last back in a venue. But you know, still a very viable business. And the other part of the planning process is around that hybrid model. So I think it's important that we don't want to go through 2021 the way we had to react in 2020, where you had one plan and that plan got disrupted, and then you had to figure out how to do plan B, and then plan B got disrupted, and then you had to go to plan C, which was virtual. In 2021, we're gonna prepare for and plan for both, frankly. We've got the learnings of the last 3 months that have been felt like 3 years, and and so we're testing, we're learning, we're figuring this out, and we are going to apply it again, you know, to our hybrid model next year. And I think that does two things. One, it prepares the community for an event that you will have regardless of the situation with vaccination or confidence in large gatherings. And then two, it prepares your team. We'll be more prepared. We will be able to produce a better product if you're ready to operate, whether it is in a physical environment or virtual,
Right.
or again both. And that will take some further planning, because we actually haven't done both yet.
Yep. No, very, very true. Very true. Well, maybe we schedule time with you in a few months, maybe after the first of the year, to see where you are and what you're thinking. It's certainly been nice to spend time with you
Oh,
now.
it's so great, Marco. I thought it was super interesting conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, it's always good talking to you both. And you know, I look forward to the further series that you guys are producing. Again, in the spirit of sharing, I think we can all learn from past experience and future planning. So anyway, really nice talking to you both. Thank you very much.